girl. Come on. Yeah. Break down, come on.
Welcome back, guys, once again to 30 Minutes of Life here on the Nerd Rage Podcast. Joining me to my left, as always, is the Skype Man, Hype Man, and the Marvel movie connoisseur. It's
Brad Learman.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing, man?
It's a great day, man. I mean, it's been a little hectic, but it's been good. And honestly, we are so happy and thrilled to be joined by none other than
Raven Metzner. I am the showrunner of Iron Fist Season 2. That's in the Marvel Universe on Netflix.
Yeah, and what a show it was. I mean, honestly, I think, Brad, you just got done watching it. I think I binged it in like 2 nights.
I did. Yeah, I really liked Season 2. I thought there were a lot of improvements from Season 1.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear you guys say that.
You did a lot of hard work on it, and I appreciate I read your AMA very briefly, and it seems like you put a ton of work into Season 2.
Yeah, I think the job is of show running a show is kind of it takes over your life, and it was great that this was a show that I was passionate about. So I did a lot of hard work, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And I think the other big thing about working in television or streaming is that there's so much collaboration, and I was very lucky that I was able to work with great collaborators, also hire great people to collaborate with. So all the way around, it was a lot of work, but it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, and what a show it was, honestly. The thing that I just want to say is for any of you guys who haven't had a chance to check out Iron Fist Season 2, or you feel like the last season might have let you down in some respects, give this season a go, because it is just what we wanted, I think, in Season 1 to be. Did you feel like coming into this season you had any sort of an uphill battle to climb, or were you just ready to take it on full force?
I'd say it was the latter. I think that, I wasn't a part of Season 1, and I wasn't working at Marvel. I was on a different show, and I was a big fan of a lot of the stuff that was going down and I watched a lot of the Marvel shows, but I wasn't sort of, I don't know, aware of people's responses to it as much as maybe people who were on the show or worked over there might have been. So I came to it, as I said, I'm a really big comic book fan, and I love the character Danny Rand, and I've always sort of loved martial arts movies, and so I felt like, wow, these are things that I adore, and so I leapt at the chance or the opportunity to be able to work on a show like this. One thing I would say also, just quickly, it's nice of you to say, suggest that people who may not have liked the first season or may not have heard about the show or whatever, to watch it. One thing I will say is that it's 10 episodes long. It's not 13 episodes long.
Right,
and
yeah.
It really is like a movie. So what I would suggest is, like, hopefully the first episode or the first 2 hook you, but the story evolves over the course of the season, and I think it goes to some really interesting places. And I would, if you like it, I would suggest. All I'm saying is that it's not one of those things that I don't know, like by episode 4, I don't know that you've gotten a taste of what's in store.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like and I think, and that's something we set out to do. I mean, it's not an episodic show. It's not like, every episode has a little Iron Fist adventure in it, and and there's no character development. I mean, it's not elementary, and it's not
right.
It's not a cop drama. I mean, like all these Netflix shows, when you come in, you kind of hopefully get sucked in and pulled forward. But that's all I'd say is, we made it 10 episodes long, so it's not as much of a commitment, and there's less of the story is more pointed, but I think that stick with it. I think any questions you might have along the early episodes, I think get dealt with and handled in interesting ways as you move through.
Yeah, actually, the one thing, again, I want to tip my cap to you on is I felt like with the first one, it felt like you kept building and building and building, and I think a lot of people slowly faded away, because it wasn't hitting, that punch where they needed it to. No pun intended. But in the opening minutes of the first episode, you guys really hit hard with a really great scene that I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't seen it. But I mean, right then and there, I was just like, I waited almost an entire last season to get something of that nature, that level of action and intensity. And you guys opened right off the gate with it. And I thought that was a good way, on top of a couple other things that happened throughout the course of the this season, that really set the tone apart from what had come before. So I think that was a great step in the right direction there for you guys.
That's cool. Thank you for saying that. That was one of those places where, I really sort of got to know Jeff Loeb over the course of the season, and in those early episodes, we didn't know each other as well, but we very quickly found out that we had a lot of our instincts for the show were similar, and we both were very, very. I came in and pitched a big action sequence, and he was like, "That's exactly what we need." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and then we also, and then he had some great ideas as well that sort of were that only the head of a studio can do, which is to say, let's shoot more days, let's spend more money, let's make it bigger and better and crazier and bigger. And so he and all the folks at Marvel and Netflix, like, they gave me the opportunity to do that. And so, it was a really, again, a great collaboration. And I think, like, that was the idea. Like, if you were missing a 70s influenced action sequence with cool martial arts that feel grounded and real and awesome in season 1, then, oh, by the way, you can have that right away, because I also missed it too.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Brad.
I got a question. So coming in, sort of as the new guy, so to speak, for the second season, what were a few moments that you really enjoyed while filming the second season?
Again, like, not with a ton of spoilers, but
sure.
There's a couple of key moments with Danny right at the very start that I really, really loved. There's a moment in the teaser where he takes the knife out of the guy's hand that he's sort of just grabbed, and he tosses the knife over his shoulder, it's just sort of this, I don't know, it's sort of this humorous moment that adds a little bit of light in there. And I kept saying over and over again to Finn, I was like, I think in the midst of all this seriousness, we could still have a little beat, like, you just toss the knife, just toss it over your shoulder, and he's like, I don't know, would I really do that? And I was like, just try it. And he tried it. And then we all kind of looked at each other, and David Dopkin looked at me, and he was like, that's it. That's
the scene.
It. Like, yes, we got to be able to, this show needs to, sometimes, look, it's a serious show with serious issues and serious things happening.
Right.
But every once in a while, you have to have the ability to not take things so seriously. And I think all the way through, there's little moments like that, like, with Misty and Colleen, when they're, sometimes they kind of rag on each other a little bit, and certainly with Ward, or even Joy and Davos, there's these little moments where I think, I don't want to say levity, but I think reality intrudes.
Yeah.
In a way that takes some of the self-importance out. So that moment for me right away, I was like, it's possible, and then we kind of went from there.
Okay.
Actually, when you're saying that too, one of the things that was very interesting to me was the interaction between Misty and you just said his name and I lost it. No, not in Colleen. Danny's Ward. There we go. I lost it for a second. I'm sorry. But her engagement with Ward. What do you think that level of interest is? What was it to you?
I think sometimes, there's just chemistry between actors, and they just, it just happens. Like, Simone Missick had never been on screen with Tom Pelphrey before, and, we had talked a lot about, in the writer's room, about different ways to play those scenes, and we we made them kind of light, and we also, but there's a stressful thing happening. So, and we were like, we talked about, is there a version in the writer's room of Misty thinking Ward is annoying? And then we kind of thought, actually, Colleen already thinks that Ward is annoying. So having Misty feel that, Ward is that way doesn't add any drama. So the idea that Misty kind of, I don't know, thinks is sort of flirting with Ward a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Was something that kind of happened as the first scenes were shot, and then we loved it, and we very quickly, we didn't make a giant deal of it, but
right.
It's fun, and also it's just unexpected and real, and I think look, those two actors got a big kick out of each other, and that's what came of it,
and it showed.
And sometimes you get lucky that way,
Yeah, actually, and I tend to overthink things a lot, but as I was watching their engagement with each other, I kept thinking, this is a very interesting dynamic, because I was thinking of her in her terms of like power, law enforcement, and then looking at him as another kind of like, high-ranking figure, and I don't know, maybe she's attracted to power, and I was looking at it from that perspective and wondering if that was the connection and the attraction there. I just really liked it, because it just seemed like it came out of nowhere, but something about it just felt kind of magical, and I was just digging every time she would look at him, kind of give him that side eye, like, all right, I like this guy. It just worked, and I really enjoyed it, on top of so many other things.
Me too. I'm glad to hear you say that. I like it too, yeah.
So let's kind of bring it back to you. So where did you and how did you get your start in this business?
As I think I might have mentioned before, I used to work with a partner named Stu Zickerman, who's a really talented writer and a showrunner as well. He runs Sweet Bitter for Starz, and he and I were partners for many years, and we sort of had written a spec script and gone out with it and gone out with a pitch, and then we kind of luckily ran across Jackie Chan's management company, and we pitched them an idea for a movie, and Jackie Chan got interested, and then we sold it to New Line, and we sort of became officially a feature writing team. We did that for many years, then we got into television, and we sold a couple pilots to Bad Robot when they first sort of opened their doors. And
oh, wow.
One of them became a series called 6 Degrees that ran for a season on ABC.
Okay.
And then about 7 years ago, Stu's based in New York. I moved out to LA, and we sort of both, while we remained best friends, we took different paths. I was always more of a person who was into the, I don't know, genre stuff.
Yeah.
And Stu less into genre, but we both always loved sort of, I don't know, emotional character stories. So I moved out to Los Angeles, and I've just been working on my own ever since.
Oh.
I started as a feature writer.
Yeah, that's so cool. So actually, I want to move on to something that kind of ties, interestingly enough, back to the Marvel world. How did you get into Elektra?
Oh, Elektra, interesting. Stu and I, we wrote a movie for Marvel Productions a while back, and before they had sort of launched this whole sort of cinematic universe, called Deathlock, that was based on the character Deathlock, and we wrote it for Paramount. And the script came out really well, and then we were talking about other properties we wanted to develop, and I was always really into Ant-Man, so we came up with an Ant-Man pitch, and we sold it to Warner Brothers, but then at the time, I think the execs over at Marvel had a different plan for what they wanted to do with Ant-Man. This is 15 years ago, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but they 12 years ago, they had a different plan. So Avi Arad said, "Listen, you guys did a lot of work on Ant-Man and didn't come to fruition. So what do you think about Elektra?" So I'm a big fan of Frank Miller comics. And
of course.
I always loved the character, so we jumped aboard and we wrote a draft. Originally, the movie was going to be a sort of a very big budget European globe-trotting film. We wrote this gigantic movie. We had lots and lots of sort of action sequences that were humongous, and we also had a lot of classic moments from the Elektra Daredevil run. Like, we had her climbing a snowy ice face cliff with her size. And, we had all that stuff. And then what happened was the decision was made to make the movie for a smaller budget in Canada. And when that happened, we were asked to rewrite our draft, but it all had happened very quickly. So we were in the process of doing that. We found out that another writer had been hired to also write at the same time that we were, which is super common. His script was the one that they shot, although he had to write so quickly that he used a lot of our situations and new characters. And anyway, I don't want to bore you guys with the rules of how those things work. But when it all sort of came out of the wash, the movie was not the movie we had written anymore. Nothing in it was what we had written, but we had created enough that our names were still on it.
Right.
So we're credited for it, which I'm really proud of. That was the only movie that I wrote on that came to pass, but there's nothing in there that, literally not a word of dialogue.
Really?
Scene,
wow.
But, no, I'd say there's absolutely nothing. The one thing, though, that we did was we did introduce Typhoid Mary in a really cool way. That was, again, the scenes that we had with her were removed from the movie, and what is in there currently is what is there. But anyway, I was really excited when the idea of using Typhoid in Iron Fist season 2 came up for a lot of specifically because of that. I was super excited to get the chance to work on that character because I had 12 years ago had done a lot of research and thought a lot about it. So it was cool. It was like it kind of came full circle.
So the ones you mentioned, Deathlock, Ant-Man, Elektra, which one resonates with you the most? Which was the one that was the one that got away?
Well, it's interesting. I really loved the script we wrote for Deathlock. It was pretty much exactly the movie Hardware. We didn't have it in the future. Yeah, we didn't have it in the future. We didn't have it in not Hardware, Upgrade.
Yeah, I think that's what you meant. Yeah,
Upgrade. It was basically a guy gets a chip in him and it's growing inside him and talking to him and taking over his body and making him fight in really cool ways. And so it was really fun and it was kind of a cool. I don't know. I liked the message behind it because it was sort of like a same thing. A Luddite who is afraid of technology, and then technology is growing within him. And there was a lot of, at the time, sort of, we weren't yet at the stage of, social media and technology being so integrated in everyone's lives as it is now with everyone with smartphones. And so I felt like now looking back at it, it's like, it was a really prescient movie and a lot of things we're talking about have come to pass. So, and that was one that I was always like, wow, that would have been cool.
Oh yeah, totally.
But look, I think for feature writers, you're kind of like, you write a lot of features and they never get made. So it's not like the one that got away. It's like, more times than not, most feature writers have a long career of writing lots and lots of movies and never getting them made. So
it's kind of a stick-to-itiveness kind of thing. Just eventually you're going to get that one.
You make money along the way. And and you get to write and it's fun. It's just, I think the big reason why my partner and I both sort of made the move into television was because we wanted to make things.
Yeah.
We wanted to make things, and I think it was a really for me it was a really fulfilling choice because I loved writing movies. It was a lot of fun, but you don't really get invited to a set. You don't get to have anything to do with casting. You don't
Right.
you don't get to meet any of the department heads or or make your ideas real. And the really lovely thing about working in television or streaming is that, especially at a place like Marvel and Netflix, is that, the writer is the showrunner, and the showrunner is considered the creator in a way that the director is in the movies. So that means that you can say the prop comes out, you can go like, no, this isn't going to work. Or you can go, I don't like this location, or let's cast so-and-so. And so
right.
I think that is the writing plus producing has been very, very, very fulfilling, and it's a really a wonderful medium, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, actually, and the one thing I wanted to follow up with that too is you mentioning Ant-Man, and then I'll let Brad ask you something here real quick. But with Ant-Man, you mentioned Warner Brothers. Now, legally, was it over at their property at that time?
No, I mean, like many of the Marvel properties at the time, Spider-Man got set up at Sony, and we wrote. Marvel was a studio that was not working specifically with a. It was a studio that wasn't working with a specific studio. Like it was it was a pod. It wasn't what it is now, and. So, and that's why, why Spider-Man is at Columbia, and why. So at the time, a lot of people were selling superhero movies all over at different studios.
Interesting.
And so Marvel had made a couple, they had the X-Men franchise at Fox, and they had Spider-Man at Columbia. And so we went over to Warner Bros. With Ant-Man, and we talked about, when I first met at Marvel, actually Artisan owned a lot of sort of at the time what they called C level characters like Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night and Ant-Man and Brother Voodoo and Man Thing, all characters that I was like, I want to make all of these movies. There was different at the time. I mean, again, I'm just a writer. I don't know how specifically it worked or I know how it's changed, but I mean, it was pretty standard. They Marvel had the rights to the characters, and they set them up at different movie studios.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that you would have someone like Moon Knight in your roster and not go, hey, maybe we could do something with this thing, or even try and put it to television at least, No, but you have to remember at that time, so much has changed. True.
I mean, at that time, literally, people were like, there'll never be a Thor movie.
True.
It doesn't make seriously.
Yeah.
Because they were like, how would you even do it? Like there was no Game of Thrones. There was no Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
They were just starting. Like there was no. The whole idea of making a movie about a villain like Venom you would have been laughed out of a pitch.
Unheard of. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then also you have to remember too, at that time, nobody had ever heard of Iron Man.
Right.
So if you were to pitch an Iron Man movie, people would go, who? You go, Iron Man.
Yeah.
He's Iron Man. They go, oh, like the Ozzy Osbourne? No. Like, so the world has changed.
Oh, absolutely.
I think for the better.
Yeah.
But at the time, when I went to that first meeting, and my agent said, so which of those characters are you interested in? And I said, Ant-Man. It's a comedy. He literally said, a comedy superhero movie? Are you out of your mind? Literally.
I mean, I could totally see him saying it too. It
was, and he wasn't. At the time, he wasn't wrong. I mean, it was
right.
So anyway, so when I said that, that's all. I mean, so I think, as I said, a lot of things have changed and shifted, since then.
Yeah, to me, I just think what a world that would be in, where there's an Ant-Man film that exists over at Warner Brothers, where all the DC comics and all that stuff is. It would just be a very interesting dynamic, because when you mention Warner Brothers, I'm thinking about the fact that New Line at one time had the rights to Blade and how they were working with that property. So it's very interesting how all those different properties were floating around.
Like I said, I set up Deathlock at Paramount.
Yeah.
Which is which that's strange, right?
Yeah,
Paramount
exactly.
doesn't have any superhero properties that are Marvel comics. So,
and that was pre-Iron Man, right?
oh yeah, this was I think I think while we were writing Elektra, I think the second Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie was being filmed.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, so very early stages of the superhero boom, as it were.
Yep, that's right.
Very cool. So Brad, I know you got some burning questions. I'll chime in here.
Sure. So after working on Elektra, in terms of your, I guess, writing style, what are some tips, or at least some techniques that you have learned since Elektra up until now?
That's interesting. One of the things, well, it's interesting. One of the things I learned in the process of writing Deathlock and Elektra was something that I learned with my partner Stu, and I'm sort of eternally grateful to him for this, because, you know, I came into it as a fan, you know, wanting to have all the things that a fan wants out of, you know, so he's like, tell me about Deathlock. Why do you love him? I'm like, because Deathlock is a cyborg in the future that's a dead walking corpse, and he has a computer he talks to. And he's like, he's like, pause, okay, no future, no corpses, right? You know, I'm like, what? It's awesome, you know. And he goes, okay, back it up. Tell me about the computer that talks to him. You know, what's that about? And I was like, well, he and the computer are in this endless battle over the nature of humanity, you know, and who gets to control the body and why. And he goes, okay, well, stay with that. Let's just talk about that, because that's a real story. That's a real character, emotional thing that we can build a whole movie out of, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, you're right.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, though, I would veer off into like, and then he's got, you know, liquid metal that pours out of his hands like the Terminator, and he'd be like, calm down, like, go back to the, you know. So what to me, like, I love action. I love as much as anybody, I love the bits and pieces of comic book mythology and lore, like Misty Knight's prosthetic arm, and, you know, Danny Rand's mask and costume, and the Iron Fist, and I'm like, but all that stuff it's wow and awesome, but it's like sugar, right? And
exactly.
The only way it works is that, I think personally, is if the story is grounded and emotional and relatable. And so my writing style since Elektra, or in the course of writing Elektra and writing Deathlock, really changed, because, you know, after that I then wrote, you know, I created a TV show that was a 6-person multi-generational drama for ABC, and worked on dramedies and worked on thrillers, and just got my chops into the world of real grounded character emotion, and how do you build story from there, and then how do you make the things you love that your superhero things or magical items or mythological items, how do you bring them in a way that are grounded and don't take you out of story, and instead help your story, you know? So
right.
I think that's what I learned over the years, that when I came to Iron Fist, you know, it has all that coolness and all that fun and all that things that I just can't wait to get my hands on, like Kunlun and Mass and Typhoid Mary and machetes.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, to me, the guiding light was, you know, this is a story about brothers, right?
Right.
And also, this is a story about a woman who's put her sword down and wants to do good and doesn't know how. And this is a story about, you know, about duality and balance and trying to find balance, you know, for all these people. And then if you start with that, then it's like you'll never get lost, because, you know, everything else has to come second to that.
Right. I mean, it boils down to a connection. If you can't connect to your characters, then the audience loses interest. So, yeah, I'm totally. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, some do. I mean, look, my son's 22, and, you know, he pushes back about that, because he's like, kind of.
Yeah.
He's like, but he goes, but if you just want to cut your entire season down to 16 minutes of kick-ass action, I would just watch that and be done. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's, like, you know, so
Totally.
I mean, look, it doesn't. I think what you get is you reach. My opinion is you reach the widest swath of people when you concentrate on relatable emotions and you pay attention to character dynamics that people can understand and relate to. You'll touch more people's hearts and minds. But I do think that, you know, every once in a while you got to have a wow moment. Like,
exactly.
You got to do it, like, because you know, when, you know, and that's when I do listen to the inner nerd inside me. You know, like,
right?
And I'm like, there's got to be masks. They've got to have a
exactly.
mask. You know,
so and I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to bring this in here, but throughout the course of the season, we see, and it's been shown in the trailers too, the bandana being used, you know, to kind of cover up the mouth rather than being up top. Although we do get to see that also in the trailers too, and it's shown throughout the season. Was the bandana over the mouth kind of thing, was that something taken from the comics, or was that more of a identity kind of thing that you were trying to conceal him a little bit?
I was trying to conceal him a little bit, and also I'm trying to, you know, evolve the process of Danny Rand and his vigilante nature. I mean, in season 1, he's not ostensibly a vigilante.
Yeah.
You know, he gets caught up in this personal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Defenders, he becomes a vigilante along with those other vigilantes, and and he's the one more than any of them who's going, we need to do this, we need to do good, this is a way, and he does have a purpose, or, you know, that's given to him in the mythology of the Marvel universe on Netflix about how the Iron Fist was created to destroy the Hand.
Right.
So therefore, he has a purpose that's even beyond being a vigilante. So it really isn't until Luke Cage season 2 in which they go bust up that group of guys in that grow room.
Oh yeah,
and then episode 1 of season 2 of Iron Fist, in which you truly are seeing Danny Rand as a vigilante. So if that's the case, then, you know, he would have to put something on, wouldn't he? Because he wouldn't want people to check out his identity. So and then also it's like, I don't know, it's an evolution. Like, that's how you get to a costume.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to one day Danny walks into a costume store and says, make me a costume. I feel like wearing a costume.
Right. Yeah, so I was just kind of curious in that, because, like, we saw back, you know, obviously Kunlun, he's got the bandana on top. Was there a feeling that him wearing that in the streets was going to be a little cheesy, or a little,
No, that bandana, it's like I was saying before about story, like, that's not the thing he wears on his face is a bandana in the modern world. In the past, that mask that he's wearing is a ceremonial mask that is, in my version of Kunlun, everyone who fights for the honor of the Iron Fist wears that mask, and they wear it for a very specific reason, which is that they've all grown up together, right? They've all known each other and fought together. They develop
I see where you're going.
bonds, right?
Yeah.
So in order to beat the living hell out of somebody that's your brother or your best friend, you got to wear a mask so you don't get emotionally attached.
Oh,
so,
I did pick up on that a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's why when Davos pulls the mask off, Danny hesitates, right?
Right.
And then the other thing about the mask is, why does it have those black things on it in the comics? Well, in my version, the way I think about it is there's two things. One, yes, they're ceremonial and they look a little bit like, say, the eyes of Shao Lao, but beyond that, they basically are eye blacking, the same way football players black their eyes to protect against sunlight.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that's why when Davos pulls the mask off to use Danny's weakness, his emotion, and if he knows Danny will hesitate, he also sets himself up for defeat, because he's pulled his eye black away, and then Danny uses the sun to blind him. So so the masks have dual purposes. They serve the fight, they serve the emotion, they serve the story, and also they mean so much to Davos.
Right.
So that when Davos carries that mask into the modern day story, it's his way of closing the loop and going, I am the Iron Fist, and putting it on to say, I am the last warrior of Kunlun. Now, and also what it does is it allows me as a storyteller to bring that mask into the modern world, so that should one day, if we ever got to season 3, if we wanted to make a costume and somebody were to go, hey, design your costume based on that mask, then there's a reason for it. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily what would happen, but I'm saying at least there's then ammunition to support story, which is a costume, so that everyone who wants a costume can get one. But in order to get one, I got to do all the pieces that add up to it.
You got to have the building blocks to earn that thing down the road, right?
Got to have. You pay in. You got to pay in so that you can have the thing you want at the end.
I totally agree. So I got 2 more questions for you, but I think Brad probably wants to get one to you. So what do you got from Brad?
The only question that I have left, and it's the only question that matters from here on out. What is your favorite Kung Fu movie?
Well, my favorite Kung Fu movie is, I think, it's Drunken Master 2. It's and for lots of reasons. That was the first time for me that I saw incredible kick-ass Kung Fu action mixed with, I don't know, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, physical comedy in a way that made me laugh and smile, but also didn't lose the stakes. And Jackie Chan also, it was the first time I ever saw a Kung Fu fighter getting punched and reacting as if he was hurt, being okay with being not so great as a fighter, and getting his ass kicked a little bit, and being someone who was like, oh, I could be one, you know what I mean? I could do that. And then also it was because I then eventually, did get to sit with Jackie Chan and talk about all the action scenes in that movie, and have him tell me how they did a lot of them, how he did a lot of them. So it was one of those movies that I have watched numerous times because I loved it, and then also because it was really instructive.
Okay.
Yeah, I can only imagine. He must be a wealth of information.
Yeah, well, I mean, also he likes to show his scars. I mean, a great example of Drunken Master 2 is he at the end of the movie, he falls back on a bunch of red hot coals. So Jackie really did fall back on real red hot coals. The problem was he had to do the take a number of times to get it right, and in one of them he had forgotten to roll his sleeve back down, so he lands on the coals and burned his forearm. And he showed me the scars on his arm from that. All those years later were still there. So the guy's a walking tapestry of martial arts action. He can show you on his body where things went right or where they went wrong.
Every scar has a story, right?
That's right.
So I wanted to get into kind of the casting process real quick. Was there any ones that personally stood out? Because I got to say, you choosing, or well, maybe Marvel choosing, but the choice to make Alice Eve Typhoid Mary, it seems so odd right off the bat, because you'd seen her almost as kind of like the Bond girl of sorts with any movie she had been in, at least from what I've seen of her work. So when I saw this, I thought this is a very interesting choice, and she is so engaging throughout this entire series that I just kept thinking to myself that there's moments that I don't want to spoil, of course, but her duality and her choice to make a decision in certain moments where I'm like, oh no, go back to him. Like there are a couple moments like that where I'm just like, like you really got me and you were pulling on my heartstrings with her, and she does such a great job. Was she a personal choice by you to cast her in this role?
There's a incredible casting group that works at Marvel that has brought some really phenomenal talents to the Marvel Comics universe on Netflix.
Agreed.
And I think you look at Vince D'Onofrio, or it's getting actors of a certain caliber, and also just this also taking chances on actors who may not be the immediate first thought that you would have, but but are perfect choices. And there was a very short list that was put together of people that were of interest, and we met with a few people. Jeff Loeb and I went and met with Alice Eve. It was immediately apparent to both of us as we met her, because she's such an interesting and smart and powerful person, that she had, and also, I mean, we knew she had the acting chops, but that she could, that it was in her, that she could do it, that she's complicated in that way. And then I got to say that I'm so happy that Alice, she had never, seen the character. The character was new. She never, and she and I never worked together, and and she took it on faith after, talking about the character, because you have to remember, we had a few scripts, but the character doesn't come into full flower until later parts of the season. So it wasn't like I could say to her, I couldn't say read the whole thing. I could just say this is the plan. Yeah. And so she's a phenomenal human being, a great actor, a great collaborator, and I'm grateful for the casting opportunities we have, but also I'm really grateful to her that she took a chance on the character and on me, and I really think it's a lovely thing we did.
Agreed. And to tack on to that, was there anyone, or is there anyone out there, I should say, within the Marvel Universe that you would like to potentially incorporate coming to a season 3 if that should come to fruition?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of characters that, I mean, as I said, I love the Marvel universe in the comic world, and I've read a lot of comic books. I think the really fun thing about having cast Alice Eve as Typhoid Mary is that I don't think people need to that people can't look at Iron Fist and go, oh well, they're definitely going to bring that character from Iron Fist comics. Like we might bring characters from from many different corners of the Marvel universe, which I think makes it really fun. So,
yeah, because I think a lot of people would.
I have a laundry list. but of characters I'd love to see, and Mr. Loeb is he's very generous and genial with me running into his office and pitching him things.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope if you ever get a chance to get like Daredevil in to interact with Typhoid Mary, or maybe even Mark Spector, who was a name I had heard floating around that was going to be a part of it in some capacity, and I think the rumor got shot down shortly before the release. I would love to genuinely see, like Moon Knight get a chance on Netflix Marvel TV there, if that should happen.
That would be awesome. That was it's interesting because, that was it wasn't so much that it was. That was a little bit of I think a miscommunication. Moon Knight was talked about a lot because he also suffers from DID, like Typhoid Mary, and has multiple personalities. So in the writers' room, we brought up different characters in film and television and comic books who have DID because we wanted to talk about how they were portrayed. So we talked about Moon Knight because he's Jake Lockley and Mark Spector, and like we talked about that, and then that was something that I had brought up, and then I think it kind of came up that it was abbreviated to Moon Knight was going to be in the season. So it was really, he was brought up as the same way that we often reference, not just Marvel Comics characters, but writers' rooms are full of people who are fans of lots of different genres.
Right.
So different writers go to different of their favorite things to describe story or character. Like, one of my friends is a giant Buffy fan. So he's always saying, oh, remember in season 3 of Buffy? It's a commonality. Like a lot of people have seen Buffy. So if you bring up a character thing from Buffy, then people in the writer's room, you don't have to be like, okay, so this happens,
Yeah.
So, but to your point, look, I mean, one of the great things about this sort of world of interconnected story is the possibility of characters coming through,
Right.
and characters appearing on one show and the other. Simone Missick is in our season is a great example of that. So
yeah, totally.
I'm all for it, and I think it's really cool, and I hope it continues. First of all, I hope I get a chance to continue with the series, but also if we can do that, then sure. I think there's lots of really cool options for crossovers and bringing in new characters from all different places in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, and we hope for that too, because, I mean, what you did this season was so much better than what came before. Like, I can only feel like it would grow into something better. And actually, that leads me to my final question. The way that it ended, now, I don't want to obviously spoil it, but it seemed like you tried to broaden and expand the world a bit more, tapping into certain things, including, making Chi a little bit more present and out there for additional characters to obtain if they so could acquire it. What is your take on that expansion, and where would you like to see it kind of evolve into a third season, if there was?
Well, I think I'm pretty. I think we. I kind of say it in those scenes. Like, I don't think it's
I guess it is kind of there.
It's all kind of there. I mean,
yeah.
I think the best way to put it is that, like, I'm a fan of the mythology, and I just I just hope people know that, like, and very much so are all the people at Marvel and at Netflix who work on these shows. At the same time, they're Iron Fist is slightly different than the other characters in that his mythology is a little bit less grounded and a little bit like, a kid get hit in the eyes with radioactive goo that, makes his other senses amplified is a little bit easier to swallow because radioactive goo is something that actually exists in our world. Although kids, don't try that at home. It's still, it's you know what I mean? Like, his dad was a boxer who threw a fight and got killed because of it. That's not like, there was a dragon, in a mountain in a hidden monastery in Kunlun. So it's just going to take a little bit longer to get to those places.
Right.
I guess one of the things I was trying to say with that is I feel like this season we went to a whole lot of those places. I mean, I feel like Davos is a walking. He's from Kunlun. He's a man from another culture who's with this incredible power, and we the Crane sisters. We pulled in a lot of mythology. So I guess all I can say is about the direction is like I think that we have to. I would like to explore more, but I always want to do it in a way that is both earned and grounded. So I was really pleased that everyone at Marvel and Netflix were excited and into those last beats. You have to imagine. I mean, that wasn't. I mean, we were talking about those last scenes all the way through the season.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because and we got there and we earned it, and they're cool. And so, sure, I'd love to explore it, but I also, like I kind of was saying before, like I just want to make sure that we don't explore areas unless they are, unless they're grounded in real character story that matters.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you were talking about with Elektra, the idea of with your script, kind of globe-trotting and that sort of thing, and to see it kind of go from the streets and being New York City and going to other locales, whether it's Kunlun or elsewhere. The idea of that is very interesting to me because I felt like obviously we both love everything that Netflix has been doing, but the idea to kind of grow and expand from that now that we've spent, probably a total of 8 seasons with respective characters, to take it to another level and just open it up even more and be heroes in other parts of the world is a very cool thing. I guess where I was originally going with that question though was the idea of I don't know in the writer's room or if anything like that there was any push for Colleen to kind of step herself into the main picture more this season. Was there any of that in the discussions, or was that just a natural progression for that character?
Well, I think it was a natural progression. I don't look at it as stepping into the spotlight. I look at it more like it's very important, I think, that in this season that we kind of obeyed the rules of the Bechdel test, and we were really conscientious about it. Our room was half men, half women, and I'm proud of that. And we had a couple of female directors that were really, really, really talented and brought a lot to the thing. And our cast is sort of 50-50 in terms of women and men. And I really wanted to make sure that that some of the scenes and dialogue, especially when it was Simone and Colleen, that they were not talking about their boyfriends and dating,
right.
Or that you know what I mean, and
they felt like real people.
Also make sure that that Colleen's story was not about being secondary to Danny. That Colleen's story was her own story, and that is something that's not anything that I wasn't like, oh, she's a step in the spotlight. I was like, let's make sure Colleen has a real story.
Right, exactly.
It isn't like, by the way, I am here in service to your story, and it's the same goes for Joy. I mean, I feel like Joy had a really her own story this season, and she's strong and powerful in her own way. And the same with Typhoid Mary and with Simone Missick's Misty Night. So we weren't trying to balance the balance it to take away from Danny or to pull anyone in forward. Or what we were trying to do was make sure that everyone had real story to tell, that wasn't making anyone, male or female, a distaff member,
right.
Or sidekick member of the team. We really want everyone to be, front and center. Everyone to be front and center.
Yeah, because honestly, I feel like, especially in regards to those two characters, I mean, they felt like very distinctly their own. Like, even throughout the course of the show, there's a conversation that happens where it's like, this thing's going to happen between you and I, and then we're going to have to do our thing. And it felt like almost different journeys right there. And it was them progressing into where they're probably going to end up in season 3. And it felt very balanced. Like, it's this guy doing his thing and this girl doing that thing. And I think it really worked. And I think it was a great way of balancing those two characters out that I think in different hands probably would have come across lesser than. And I think you did a fantastic.
Thank you so much. Look, I got to say also, to be honest, I mean, look, I really appreciate that. But, also the cool thing about working in television or streaming is the collaboration. And I had a really, really strong writer's room. We had great directors that came on board and they lent their story ideas as well as their skills in directing. I had really, really strong partners at Marvel and at Netflix, and we were all marching to the same tune. So, and look, also the cast as well. Like they were, Jessica Henwick is a phenomenal actress and a really talented performer who can do great dramatic stuff, and also is an incredible physical performer. But she flat out, she was like, I'm not doing I'm not a backup character. I'm not a sidekick.
Right.
I want to have my own story.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want the same thing.
Yeah.
So we did it together, and that was something that was very, yes, I wanted it and I pushed for it and I led the charge, but there's no way to do that kind of thing alone. That's the kind of thing that you need all hands on deck to make sure that you respect everyone's sort of place in a series like this, and give people arcs that are their own, and not a ornament to someone else's role.
Sure.
Exactly. And again, the way you handled it was fantastic. I'm really genuinely excited. Like, I felt like at the end of Iron Fist season 1, I was like, I'm ready maybe for Defenders and them all to get together. That's going to be great. But I'm actually of that mindset now where, even more so than maybe say Jessica Jones, I want to see another Iron Fist season right now. just because of the way that ended. Like, I think the tone of everything was great. The action was there. It hit the right marks where it needed to. I mean, it made someone like myself who was kind of in and out a little wishy-washy, like, nope, I'm an Iron Fist fan again, and this is the reason why. So I think you did a fantastic job, and I really hope that they bring you back for the third season or put you on another different Marvel project as well to really just keep showing your nerd love for everyone out there.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really hope I get that chance as well. And so, and look, it's great talking to people. And these past couple of weeks, as it's sort of out there, and people are responding to it, and it's just really great to hear everyone's opinions. Passionate opinions about the show, and to know that there's so much love out there for the character, and for the possibility of what the show can be. So yeah, given the opportunity, I will work real hard to make it awesome.
We're looking forward to it. All right. Well, that is it for this week's show. Thank you guys for listening to 30 Minutes of Life. As always, you guys can find us on nerdragepod.libsyn.com for all of our episodes. You can find us pretty much anywhere podcast services are, whether it's iHeartRadio, Spotify, any of those. You can find us pretty much anywhere. Follow us on Twitter at nerdragepod. The Nerd Rage Pod. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's the Nerd Rage Podcast. Check us out on our TeePublic store, support the show that way, or just find us on our Patreon and donate a couple dollars, and you get some cool exclusive content, kind of like this show right here. And I think that's it for this week. So for myself, for
Brad Learman
and
Raven Metzner, thank you so much.
we will see you guys another time.